begin our talk. This is continuation of my talk on ignorance, avidya. I gave you several things that we don't know, and that not knowing is called avidya, not knowing. We call it ignorance. We are ignorant of the fact that suffering arises from clinging to the five aggregates. And that we don't know. We know the five aggregates by name, like form, feeling, perception, thoughts, or volitional formations, and consciousness. As we are dealing with dependent origination, we have to know how suffering arises due to the five aggregates. And in Dhamma Sutta, the first sermon of the Buddha, as well as the dependent origination, Buddha used the word eva metasya kevalasya dukkha kandasya samudayo hoti. Thus is the arising of suffering aggregate. Now we have five aggregate: form, feeling, perception, thoughts, or volitional formations, and consciousness. And all of them put together, Buddha called aggregates of suffering, dukkha khanda, aggregates of suffering. Dukkha, the aggregates are called pancha khanda, and that also is called pancha upadana khanda. Five aggregates and five aggregates of clinging, or five aggregates subject to clinging. One may wonder, because of our ignorance, we don't know the difference between five aggregates and five aggregates subject to clinging. Five aggregates, anybody have five aggregates, form, feeling, and so on. But some just have five aggregates, but don't have five aggregates subject to clinging. How can you separate these two? Aggregates of clinging we all have as long as we have ignorance. Those who got rid of their ignorance have five aggregates but don't have five aggregates subject to clinging. Why is that? They got rid of their clinging, upadana, clinging. So who are they? The Buddha and Arahants, and even Pacheka Buddhas. These are the individuals who have five aggregates but don't have five aggregates subject to clinging, because they don't they don't cling to their aggregates. Others who have not got rid of their clinging to the aggregates have the five aggregates with the full force of clinging, or they have five aggregates subject to clinging. They cling to the aggregate, others don't cling to the aggregates. That is the difference. So, five aggregates of clinging are that we have. Others have aggregates, but they don't cling. This is the difference. But we don't know this difference, and therefore we simply call 5 aggregates. Now, 5 aggregates are subject to clinging is the source of our suffering that we don't know. We don't know. We cling to our body, we cling to our feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness. It is very natural thing. And therefore, as long as we cling to them, we have suffering. Why is that? We cling to the body when the body is healthy, young, strong, very energetic, and can do lot of things with this body. Acrobat, running, walking, exercising, and muscle building, and big, strong person, beautiful person, this and that. Thinking all these things, we cling to our body. When the body is in this good shape, it naturally people like to they are attached to it, attach their bodies. This is very natural. If they know the body as exactly as it is, then they use the body, have the body, and they maintain it, support it, sustain it. When they are sick, they get well and continue to live. That is okay. But at the same time, there is another part which is not okay. That not part that is not okay is, although the body is going through all these aging, decaying, falling sick, and eventually die. We think this body is something solid, hard, permanent, eternal, and become very proud of it. Anything that happens to this body, we will be depressed, disappointed, suffer, and grief-stricken. For instance, when the body is sick, we feel depressed, disappointed, lonely, and very upset because we cannot do all other things uh, that we used to do when we were healthy. So, not knowing the body is like a clay pot. Anytime clay pot is brittle, anytime it can break. It is sun, heat, cold, wind, mosquito bite and snake bite, and any tiny little coming from outside can hurt this body. This body, body is when you remove sometimes accidentally a part of your body will have bruise, so skin comes off, maybe for about 1 inch square skin comes out. When you are outside the house, wind can blow and make us cause pain. Mosquitoes bite and any little fly sits on it, we have pain. And when we go to water, even the water, heating water, can cause pain. And anything, tiny little, very soft, finest piece of cotton uh, rubs against it, we have pain. That is the nature of the body. And this body is therefore like a wound covered with the skin. When the skin is removed, we have pain. So we covered in such a tiny little thin skin to cover this wound. And this skin, this body covered with this thin layer of skin, sometimes we call beautiful, ugly, this and that. All these, we have this uh, distorted perception of the body, which is covered with this very tiny little skin to cover the wound, and inside the thing is the same. Everywhere, everybody inside is the same. Inside is the same. But because of this thin layer and because of our strength and all these things, we are very proud of this body. And more proud of our body, more suffering will be there, because whenever we are sick, all our pride disappears. When we lose our job, all our pride disappears. When somebody doesn't love us, our pride will disappear. We will be depressed, disappointed. All because of this apparently beautiful body. And we don't know the amount of suffering due to this body. Please don't misunderstand me. I don't mean to tell you that we can live without the body. We have to live with the body, but this body is the source of suffering. In many ways, there are many kind of sicknesses that can make us very unhappy, disappointed, and suffer. Without even any disease, sickness, still there are many other things that can make us sick because of this body. And we don't know that. We may know superficially, but we don't want to know it more deeply. We want to hide it under the rug and pretend there is no suffering. This is ignorance. We will talk about it more in detail when we start after this first part, and then start our last section of this talk. Now let us begin our metta practice and start our meditation. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds, whatever living beings there may be, without exception, weak or strong, long, large, medium, short, subtle or gross, visible, invisible, living near or far, born or coming to birth. May all beings have happy minds. Let no one deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere. Neither from anger nor ill will should anyone wish harm to another. As a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so towards all living beings, one should cultivate a boundless heart. One should cultivate for all the world a heart of boundless loving friendliness, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hate or resentment, whether standing, walking, sitting, lying down, or whenever awake. One should develop this mindfulness. This is called divinely dwelling here, not falling into erroneous views, but virtuous and endowed with vision, removing desires for sensual pleasures. One comes never again to birth in the womb. Friends, with this very wonderful, pure thought of metta, boundless metta, we begin this session. We keep in our mind that we want to share our pure, clean metta with all those who are suffering these days, additional suffering that they go through because of this virus, And our practice of metta is so powerful, we must make a very sincere intention and wish all these beings free from this disease. May no one be affected by this. May those who are affected be free from it very soon. And those who are supporting in many ways continue their help, support without themselves being affected by this. They, even though some many wonderful people take care of themselves, doing all kind of taking precautions, and still some have got this infected, some have infected with this virus, and so we want them to be free from it, and all those who are supporting spiritually, financially, physically, whatever way they try to help these people also need our metta. We want all of them to be free from this virus and return to their regular normal health and live long in very good health. And then with this very sincere wish, let us begin our mindfulness practice. This metta itself is actually very powerful mindfulness practice because we have to be mindful of the suffering that exists. When we breathe in, paying total attention to our breath, we feel the rising and falling of our lower abdomen, rising and falling of our upper part of the body like chest area, and then we feel the expansion and contraction of the abdomen, lungs, chest, and also we feel the breath touching our nostrils. And wherever you feel comfortable, there you pay attention to notice the breath coming in and going out. So inhaling, noticing inhaling, exhaling, noticing exhaling, and be aware of the brief pause in between. And then you notice your feeling or sensation of the breath is rising along with the breath. Your perception arises, perception of rising and falling of the abdomen, chest area, and the breath, and your attention or volition to pay attention to the breath also rising and falling, our consciousness rising and falling. What I mentioned as before is the briefest way to mention 5 aggregates. They all constantly changing, knowing and seeing their change itself on the one hand, make us bring us our understanding to remove our ignorance. On the other hand, we become aware of impermanence of all these aggregates. They all rising and falling. That is called vipassana jnana or knowledge of insight. With this, our body relaxes, the breath relaxes, mind relaxes, and then our hindrances subside, greed, anger or resentment, restlessness and worry, sleepiness and drowsiness, and doubt all fade away. Then arises a moment of full awareness of disappearance, letting go of all this is called thought of renunciation, letting go. We renounce them, and then arises real sense and feeling of metta, loving friendliness, and that leads to compassion, and then we become full of joy by not having these hindrances and having this generosity, loving friendliness. We have compassion, then we have joy, and then we gain happiness that leads to concentration. When we gain concentration, we are even more joyful, pleasing, as Buddha said. Concentrated mind sees things as they really are, which is rising and falling. Seeing rising and falling, you become even more joyful. As Buddha said, yato yato sammasati, khandanang udayabhyang, labati piti pamojjang, amatang tang vijanatang. Seeing rising and falling of the five aggregates, one is full of joy, that is very much like Nibbana, that the mind is so pure and clean, it is very much like deathlessness. With this awareness, we continue our practice. Dukkha patta nidukkha, bhaya patta nibhaya, soka patta nisoka, hontu sabbe pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. So too may all beings be. This once again, friends, is the very pure, clean wish coming from metta practice. We want to wish all living beings to be free from pain and suffering, especially those who are in pain, in distress, loneliness, grief, disappointment, boredom, and all this caused by this virus. May they all be free from all of them and return to their normal, regular, healthy life and live long in good health. Now I want to continue my little talk on ignorance. I said the ignorance of the fact that suffering arises from the five aggregates. I mentioned one aggregate of form, the body, made up of four elements, and giving us the sense of stability, hardness, solidity, and cohesion, radiation, uh, and all this we find in the body. And they all are continuously changing. We don't see that very well, and nor do we like to accept that it is changing, but it is the reality that we try to turn our back or try to ignore it. Longer we ignore, more we are ignorant. And then our feelings, 6 kind of feelings arising from eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind. They call Chakku Sampasaja Vedana, Sota Sampasaja Vedana, Ghana Sampasaja Vedana, Jiva Sampasaja Vedana, Kaya Sampasaja Vedana, Mano Sampasaja Vedana. All this means the feeling arising from the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body and mind. All these feelings divided into 3: pleasant, unpleasant and neutral. And when the pleasant feeling arises, it arises with the underlying tendency of greed. When unpleasant feeling arises, it arises with the underlying tendency of resentment. When neutral feeling arises, it arises with the underlying tendency of confusion. But we don't see them because they are so hidden and lurking under the feeling. Underlying tendency, we don't see. That is what they are called, underlying tendency. We don't see them. And they all are constantly changing. Pleasant feeling is pleasant when it is present. When present feeling disappears, we feel unpleasantness, pain, disappointment. When pain is present, we have pain. When pain disappears, we have pleasure. When neutral feeling is present, we are confused. When the neutral feeling fades away, disappears, we become wise. How come that happen? Well, when the pleasant feeling arises, we become attached to it, we like it, we delight in it, we want to maintain, sustain, support and keep it forever. That unfortunately does not happen. Pleasant feeling is impermanent as anything else. So we don't see them and therefore we will be very delighted with the pleasant feeling, get carried away, and we even forget everything else. It doesn't mean that we should not experience pleasant feeling. Experience pleasant feeling as it arises. At the same time, don't forget this pleasant feeling ends up in painful feeling. That does not mean also that we should be negative, pessimistic about pleasant feeling. We experience pleasant feeling knowing, just like when pleasant feeling arises, we have underlying tendency of desire. Similarly, when the pleasant feeling arises while having pleasant feeling, we try to understand, well, this is a very beautiful feeling, pleasant feeling. However, this will fade away. I should not be disappointed when it fades away because that is the nature. When unpleasant feeling also when arises, we should not be too depressed, too disappointed, because that unpleasant feeling also impermanent. It is not permanent. When it passes away, you can see right away unpleasant feeling also impermanent. Neutral feeling is when it is there, we are confused. When neutral feeling fades away, we will be insightful. Why is that? In the neutral feeling, we get confused because we do not see the beginning of neutral feeling and end of neutral feeling. Not knowing the beginning and end or rising and falling of neutral feeling, we are confused. We don't know when neutral feeling arises, when neutral feeling passes away. It happens so naturally. And therefore, if we are mindful, paying total attention to our feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, particularly neutral feeling, then we will see how pleasant feeling ends and neutral feeling arises, and neutral feeling ends and then painful feeling arises. When painful feeling ceases, neutral feeling arises. When the neutral feeling ceases, unpleasant feeling arises again. So these three kinds of feelings uh, go on like this: pleasant, neutral, unpleasant, unpleasant, neutral, pleasant, and this is the sort of merry-go-round. This goes on and on and on. We know the pleasant feeling arising, we know pleasant feeling passing away, but we don't see the unpleasant feeling, the neutral feeling arises and neutral feeling passing away. That is the confusion. When we see this, we become insightful and we know, we gain wisdom. Not seeing this whole uh, series of uh, feelings arising, changing, passing away, arising, changing, passing away, is called ignorance, not seeing them. And the third is perception. Perception is compared to mirage. Mirage. Mirage is, mirage seems to appear, but it is not there. We all know when mirage appears in some hot summer day, maybe in dry area, on the road sometimes. If we drive from a distance, we might see water. As we drive closer, the water goes farther away, and if we somehow stop, turn back, water is behind us. So we keep chasing water, and water chasing us. And we turn to water, it goes away. So it looks like water, and that deceives us. Similarly, perception our mind, we have uh, wrong perception. The right perception doesn't do that. So we don't see the difference between wrong perception or distorted perception and undistorted or clear perception. Not knowing this, we get confused. So, however, one thing is very sure in perception, whether it is distorted or undistorted, clear or not, that perception is impermanent. And that is the aspect we don't pay attention to. That is the aspect we don't see clearly. And that is why perception is ignorance. We are ignorant of perception. uh, there are, you can bring up any kind of examples to show this distorted perception, visual perception, auditory perception, gustatory perception. In all these, we can see distortion first. For instance, we see an object which appears to us to be real. Get closer and closer and closer, that appearance changes. Uh, for instance, you can see a picture. Picture from a distance looks very beautiful. I remember one day I went to Vatican and went to see the cathedral, that very famous Vatican, and Michelangelo's pictures were there. I was going with somebody else. I told him, look at that image. He said, Bante, it is not an image. This is a picture. I said, no, that cannot be a picture. Nobody can draw pictures like that. As I came closer, what he said was true. It was a picture. But from a distance, it looks like an image. This is visual perceptual distortion. Not the picture's distortion. Michelangelo is so smart, so he drew the picture in such a way that we spectators or visitors think that the pictures are images. Like that, you can find out many examples of perceptions. These days, it is very easy, especially because of modern technology. People, for instance, somebody said after seeing this, our Zoom presentation, somebody in another country said to us, my goodness, why don't these people wear face mask? That person thought we all are in one room, because that is how this technology presents us our pictures. We all appear to be sitting in one room, but we are in many different places. This is visual perception, visual distortion, and we get confused, and that not seeing this very material thing exactly as it is ignorance. Ignorance in that way. That ignorance arises not from you who are watching and listening, but ignorance arises in me because I don't know this technique. So the person who said to me, why don't these people wear face mask, was not very familiar with the modern Zoom technology. That is another example. Seeing and hearing. Boy, we can hear so many beautiful things, but underneath it is not that beautiful. For instance, you listen to a concert. Concert is so attractive, tempting and very thrilling to many people. When you go closer and closer and closer, it is so deafening. You want to run away from it. First to run into it to enjoy more, but when all these noises from various instruments, singing, this and that, is blasting, you have to put earplugs. For distance, it is so beautiful. Closer, it is not so beautiful, not so pleasant. Hearing. smelling, tasting. Tasting distort us even more than smell. Uh, Sometimes some certain things are very, gives very unpleasant odor. You even don't like to get close to it. But it is very nutritious, more tasty, like for instance durian. Durian in some countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Burma, Thailand and so forth, they have durian. It is so smelly that you cannot bring them to hotels. Hotels will stop you bringing this into the hotel because it is so smelly. But when you taste it close in your nose and taste once, you go for it again and again. That is distorted perception through the nose. And also it is very nutritious. And the taste, we taste very many, very tasty things, but they are very, very harmful to body. For instance, junk food. Everybody likes junk food. They like to, they don't have time to cook. They go to market and get junk food and eat and drive while eating and doing various other things and put in a lot of starch, a lot of grease and a lot of fat and a lot of oil, a lot of unhealthy thing into the body, and we build up unhealthy body, obese body, sick body, and cancerous body, and so forth and so on. Because of a distorted taste, we are distorted and we are ignorant of what we are doing, what we are eating, and we get sick. Similarly, our body, we have distorted bodily touch, appears to be very uh, pleasing, but eventually it brings pain, suffering, and distorted thinking. All this we do not know very clearly, and therefore this is called the ignorance of not knowing suffering arising from the five aggregates subject to clinging. If we do not cling to the body, feeling, perception, and so on, if we do not cling to these five aggregates, we will live a moderate life, healthy life, and we will have time to meditate, clean our mind, get rid of our ignorance, and attain liberation. And therefore, friends, ignorance goes all the way into our life. Every aspect of our life has ignorance. So don't feel bad about my talking about ignorance, and we have to be very sincere, honest, to accept the reality as it is and live this life with that understanding. And that's what I want to say as a part of, there is little more to say, that is the end of suffering. We are totally ignorant of ending of suffering. I will talk about it tomorrow. Tonight, this morning, I think this much is enough. Once again, I want to conclude this little section, little talk, wishing again with metta, wish all these uh, persons, individuals suffering from this coronavirus, we sincerely, honestly wish that come to an end very quickly and get these people back to their regular life, their jobs, their movements, their activities, enjoyments, the parks, exercises, thousands of things have been affected. I sincerely wish this virus will wipe out from Earth and return our people's lives back to normal. With this wish, friends, I want to conclude this morning's talk, and I see you tomorrow morning. Thank you for listening and participating in this wonderful wish. You may get insight as well as you get a lot of merits, and you can liberate yourself from suffering as well as helping others to be free from suffering. Thank you.